Welcome to another wonderful episode of Joy and Gratitude. And today is the start of a new day. Every single day is. So we get the opportunity to get into our flow, to command our presence, and be who we want to be. And with that, I ask my co host, Ms. Beth Mercurio, could you please tell us what we're going to discuss today?
Yes. Hello, Neo. Hello, listeners. I love that Neo introduced us today with it's a new day and how we get to choose. Because I thought what we could talk about today is this topic around navigating bad news and what do we do. So there's a perfect example. We're choosing to start this day in a certain way, but one of the things we know about life is it constantly changes no matter how prepared we are or how prepared we think we are for the day ahead, weeks ahead, years ahead. Things come and hijack us or tip us over. And what do we do when that happens? What is it that we can do to navigate those moments, whether it be bad news, significant change, etc.? So, Neo,
Hmm.
I know you wrote about this. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to plug that blog of Joy Notes every time I can. I was super inspired by reading some of the thoughts you had about navigating bad news, and it prompted me to really want to talk about this and have our listeners hear us talk about what we do and how we manage it and how we untangle ourselves and the methods we use to manage through that. So tell me.
Yeah, absolutely. Bad news happens in different scales in our lives, in our day. There's not a day that something happens, whether it's that you just bumped your toe to you heard something unexpected that can actually change the path of what you were going to do for the rest of the day or for the rest of your life. You really don't know. But one of the things that you have to know is you need to know all the information before you make any type of decision regarding the bad news. So often we don't hear everything. We hear the first few words that are shocking to us, and we sit in there. And actually, when we find out all the information, then we have the ability to start processing it in the facts, not in the emotion. The emotion is going to happen. That's natural. But remember, we talked about this some time back. In 90 seconds, you can control those emotions and you can bring yourself back into a level of from going to, I got this. Okay, let me think clearer. What can I do? And remember, what that really does is it lets you decide what you can control in the situation and what
Mhm.
you can't control. I'll give you an example. Last week, out of nowhere, I received a phone call. And the phone call is, oh, grandma's had a car accident.
Mm.
Well, that's alarming. That's change. That's something that
Yes.
you have little control over, especially that I live in Georgia. My mother lives in New Jersey. And the first thing you say to yourself, okay, you know, how bad is it? If you just go by grandma had a car accident and hold yourself there, you're in a manic situation. But what you do is you start asking the questions. You find out what is real, what's not real. And then you say, what can I control? When I can control that I can get a flight. I'm so blessed that I live in Atlanta and I can get a flight out within a few hours. That's not an uncontrollable situation. Two, I needed to ask, was it necessary for me to come out that fast? Or could I wait till the morning? Right? So now we start untangling and unraveling that change.
Mm.
And it just happens because we've taken the time to understand that change is part of life. It's the one standard in life, and that our reaction is the most important thing in change. Yes, we have emotions. But reality is, when we have all the information, when we see what is controllable, what is not controllable, then we can start handling the change and walking in the change. And that's just the first few steps of change. I'll hand it over to you.
Mm. I have so many things that are like I'm like, which direction do I want to go in? I'm
By
gonna
the way, she's
hold.
okay. She's okay. She's
I'm like,
fine.
yeah, like which direction? But there's one thing that really it's funny. I'm just thinking about this idea of pausing, which we talk so much about, to get more information and more clarity. And I think what was coming to mind for me, and first of all, I'm so sorry to hear that news, and like you said, that shock of it, and the how do I get there fast, all of that piece of it. I think your conversation around, wait, how fast do you really need to get there? What's possible? Like understanding, so we talk a lot about the power of possible. That's been something I think is so foundational for always looking at like what is possible. So I agree. First you went to what is possible. Like what can I do? Because that makes you feel like you have some power instead of everything coming at you. Again, we talk about to you versus for you. You basically were choosing to shift into for me mode. What is possible for me to get there versus this happened to me and I'm here and I can't get there. And it's funny, I had something, it's not even close to the same, but I was listening to you and I was having this emotional kind of relevance of reactivity come up for me, which was before the podcast this morning. I love that we just talk about stories that are in the moment. I was trying to do something and I was as simple as trying to get a flight, and it should have been so easy. So if I think back, because I've already been like, how did I get here? Where I was like frazzled and feeling out of control. And I had started my day beautifully, like fresh fall morning, crisp. I'm like, it's a new day. I had said the words that you started the podcast with: new day, choice of today. How will I live into this day and this moment? And then all of a sudden, late to the podcast, heart racing, frazzled. And I paused to go, wait, what happened here? Like, what changed? And all I realized was one, I owned doing something too close. Like I knew what time this started, and I thought, well, I can just do this really quick, because typically on any other day it would have been really quick. I was just going to buy a flight. I already had all the information. It was in my cart, and all I had to was waiting for a couple of other people to confirm it, say yes, press go. Yes, press go came, and I thought, you know what, I want to do that, because I feel like right now it's a whole nother conversation, but airlines change their flight costs about every 2 seconds. So now I feel this pressure. I was pressurized to be like, I've got to lock this in at the cost that it is. So I thought this really easy thing, hit review and pay, would be easy. And then all of a sudden, my payment method got rejected. And I thought, okay, that's fine. I'll try it again. Like, I'll type it back in. I did that. And then it got rejected again. So then I was like, I don't have time for this. The frenzy started, right? The change, the like, this was supposed to be easy and it's not, was happening to me. And I'm thinking about this as my physical body was starting to get like a little frenzied. I'm like, I'll just use it. I'll just use another credit card. No problem. I'll try another credit card. That credit card got denied. So now all of a sudden, I started to spin because I'm like, oh my gosh, my financial institution's denying my credit cards, multiple credit cards. Wait, that means like what happened? Something's wrong with my bank. And I literally went out a little bit like too far to go like, oh my gosh, this is a huge thing. I don't know what's happening. What's going to happen? Oh, is this going to be my day? Is my day going to be trying to track down whether or not I've got fraud on all of my credit cards and like what's happening? I went all that way when really if I had just paused, I could have said, "You know what? I can do this later." It could very well be an airlines thing, not necessarily my credit. There's no reason to assume like all of these things. And if I took a moment, and this is the one real piece that I want to share for that long story. Sorry, it was a long story, but relevant is, what's the worst thing? So the worst in all of that, like the worst thing that could have happened or will potentially happen, because I'm still in this, this is still going on in the background. I had to just abort mission and be like, I'll deal with it later, is the flight's going to cost more. Like that, like that's probably the worst thing that'll happen is I didn't get to purchase at that price and the price will go up. Is that a good thing? No. Is that a manageable thing? Like something that I can handle, wrap my head around and really going to impact me? No, it's not that big of a deal. My reaction did not match, and I'm sharing this with you guys live and in person. Like this is just happening to me. And my reaction and my reactivity to not being able to buy a ticket at the time that I wanted to work for me and my world, that reaction doesn't match. And I feel like my body is literally like the energy right now is like becoming so much calmer because I'm realizing like, oh my gosh, I just got, like we say, hijacked. Like it happened to me for something that really didn't need it. All that energy, the turmoil, the heart racing, the running. I was literally running from room to room because I knew I was late. And all I really needed to do was do exactly what you said, Neil. Pause and go, really? Like, does any of this merit what's happening to me physically? And the answer would have been no. Like, this is not a crisis situation. This is not a, a well being. Do I need to get on a plane and go help someone? This is something small that felt bigger to me. And that's just because it was like a normal reaction to a quick change, a quick and unexpected change. And I allowed that to become bigger and take energy that it didn't need. And had I done what you suggested, which is just pause and go, wait a minute, you don't even know whether or not this is an airline website problem or your financial credit situation where you might have to spend some time trying to fix it. I don't even know that. And I went down that path of a lot of assumptions. So I did not have clarity. I did not have information. And I allowed this potential misinformation to lead me down this other path that is honestly what's sad about that is the energy that it takes from me, the fact that that almost switched my day. Now the good news is I'm taking that back, and I just did the pause right here live on the podcast with you. In like worst case scenario, I will have to find some extra dollars for the flight having increased. I'm going to figure out whether or not the fraud was, really happening or it was a website down situation. Like
Yeah.
all of that is manageable.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh, right. What we let change flip us all the way one side or the other instead of taking that time to just slow down and go, wait, I can actually control how this change literally impacts me. And you said it so beautifully by getting more information, by pausing for a moment, by understanding possibility, asking different questions to get you closer to what you need. And then ultimately having the choice to sort of say, how will I move based on this change?
Absolutely. And, by the way, you don't have fraud. What you have is a cache that's on your computer and you needed to refresh that website and your credit card would have gone through. But
Yes.
that's a technical issue. just letting you know. Um, there
Neo's clearly been through this before. This is like a not Beth Mercurio situation. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it happens to me like almost every day because I live on a plane. I'm not home, obviously. Um, so, it's really an interesting situation of what we put ourselves through. And most of the
Yes.
time is because when things are happening, we are already waiting for the shoe to drop. And we're not attentive listeners. We actually um, do not engage. Everybody, so we've talked about active listening before. We've talked about all the different types of listening. And in the fact of listening and dealing with things, you must really understand the core of the situation in order to truly be able to have an opinion and to be able to react to it. And we spend more times in our head making up the worst case scenario before we even can digest the whole change. I'll give you an example. You know, when you, I remember when I had large teams, and I would send out an email. We're going to have an all hands meeting, and just because of life, I didn't give a 2 week lead. I might have given a 2 day lead, 2 days. And immediately the buzz in the whole organization was, we're all getting fired. The world is going to end. I mean, the gossip that came out of let's have an all hands meeting, which 99% of the time was positive, not negative. It was just,
Mhm.
I have so much information I need to share with you that I haven't. And it's good information that you should have. But in their brain, she didn't give 2 weeks lead. Oh my goodness, this has to be bad. And we do this to
Mm.
ourselves over and over and over again. And reality is, whether it's bad news or good news, we start with curiosity. We
Mhm.
start with information gathering. And then, and only then, do we react. And until we really understand the information, guess what? You should not impose a viewpoint.
I I
We have to understand it all and understand where that person that's communicating with us is truly coming from, or their core reason for stating whatever it is, all the and then we're at the point that we repeat it to them to make sure that we get it, we have it right. Because sometimes we're so quick to, they say a word and we get hooked on the word, and everything else they said is a blur.
gosh.
And once we get there, that we can repeat what we think we understand them to say, and they can clarify it back to us. Now we can deal with the bad news. Now we can deal with the change because you have the totality of the information you need to digest. And the other thing is, in change, there is always good.
Say more
Either
about
you,
that.
yeah, because every time there's change, you are either, I believe that in change there's joy.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is that change either gave me a teaching,
Mhm.
or change made me be able to use a skill that I have latent.
Oh, alright, you just that was the most incredible segue for me because as I was sitting here, the whole time I was thinking, "Man, you and I come on here and we talk and we are in the work a lot, right? Our we are in our self work, doing
Right.
our own work. And I'm hoping that listeners can see and still and yet and again we have to remind ourselves. So I just experienced today this morning in front of all of you that no matter how solid I think my foundation is, something small can tip me one way or the other. And how beautiful, as I was listening to you, I was thinking, wow, what? So my reflection, and I'm not sure, I still need to do more of it. I'm not done, of like why that small instance got me so riled up. I think it has to do about energy, my
Mhm.
fear of loss, of like loss of having, having to deal with something when I really was like, right, that shift was too dramatic. But I'm going to reflect more on it. But that's the joy. The joy is instead of, how amazing that I already see the difference in my energy. From, I'm sure you see it. I'm like, I came on it like very dysregulated vagus nerve. Hello, that was one of our fabulous episodes, right? Similar, like that was, I was not in a place. So how did I come back? So we always say that whole episode was about that. Know it and then be like, how do I come back? So similar, well, one of the things I want to talk about was what I've been coining the Weeble Wobble dynamic, which is all around change. And I think I've certainly said on episodes that pendulum of extreme, going from one extreme to the other. But really, what I love to live in, like if I could nirvana myself to live, I'd love to live in that neutral place. Not all the way over here, not all the way over here. And maybe we could call that balance, we could call that flow. I think neutrality, all of that is that same thing
Mhm.
where when you get hit, it's just a little Weeble Wobble and not the full Weeble Wobble where you get flipped all the way over. I'm so into this that I bought myself a Weeble Wobble. I wish I had a flat surface. I don't think it's going to do justice and it'll fall the other way. But um, I literally am obsessed and have it on my desk because it's just such a good reminder when I tip them all the way over, but comes back and might still be a little shaky, but eventually comes back to neutral. And how I'm using this with our clients and with myself is that even when you hold a Weeble Wobble, and I'm hoping that many of our listeners can remember the Weeble Wobble. For those of you that are listening and not looking, made by Play School way back in the day, and
Weeble
they
wobble and they don't fall down.
exactly. See, Neo even remembers. They had such a good slogan that everybody remembers it.
Mhm.
Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. And when you're holding them, what you can feel, and I hope some of you are running up to your like closets that you kept Weeble wobbles. I had to go on and purchase one, but they're very strong at the bottom. That's how it works, right? There's obviously like science and technology for how this amazing toy was created, but for me it's just, oh, it's so good. It's the foundation, it's the strength in the foundation that allows you to weeble wobble and come back up. And so I work hard with my clients to say, like, what's going on with your foundation? Like, where are there cracks in the foundation? That can go to health, that can go to well being, that can go to all the things that we talk about on this podcast around knowing when you've got thrown way over,
Mhm.
what do you need to tap into in your foundation to get you back up? And one of the things that you talked about was being hooked, right? You said, "Oh, you got hooked." So in that moment where I knew I was literally running, my heart was racing, I was very stressed, I should have remembered that one of my tools, we all have different tools. That's what I love. Like we could all as listeners think, what is my foundation? Like what do I do when I am completely flipped one side or the other? What is it that brings me back to having some power, strength, sturdiness, foundation, groundedness, like all of those things? What is it? Pausing always works for me. Just taking a pause would have changed my ability to make a different choice. And that's so clear to me now that I didn't pause. I was literally right back on that treadmill. So I bring that up and I'm really sticking on it to say it doesn't matter how much you have been in the work. It doesn't matter how hard you're trying, but it's understanding it and shortening the time. So I'm already in a very different place. Whereas in the past, that may have thrown me for hours or days, weeks, even, right? It can really throw you off your foundation and sturdiness. And the closer in you can get to, oh, I'm feeling that soma, vagus nerve, something's happening here. I've now like, been hijacked by my emotions in some way, understanding that and coming back. One, it'll enable you to reflect. Like, I cannot wait later today to go, whoa, you were hijacked for that reason. Like, let's figure that out because in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that big. I didn't have a big moment. Those big moments are going to come where that phone call comes, Neo, some more, more meaningful and bigger. Those things will happen. Small things will happen. And if we can find the joy in learning and going, wow, I cannot wait to figure out what that was about, because the more I understand, the more curious I am about why that just happened, the more I can then I think get closer to letting that time frame stop and go, remember that's because of X, Y, and Z for you. Just go for a little walk, slow down, take a pause, come back at it, get more information, all those different things. I've talked a lot right now and just
Yeah.
love to hear what you
There's
think about that.
there's also the fact that it's in the small things that you really learn
Mm,
about yourself. And you
mm,
start defining and naming your triggers, because the way that you handle things has everything to do with, we have a set of things that trigger us.
Mhm.
So when we get the bad news, the triggers are all lined up at the ready on the line to hear the gun go off and run at you, and they're bombarding you because your brain is like out there. So anything can trigger you. And you have to understand that when you're in the little things, something, even though I'm not trying to minimize what happened, but in
No,
the
not at all.
grand scheme of things, it is a small thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That in its own right becomes a major thing
Yes.
because you're not seeing it as what it is. It's something that's manageable. It's something that's temporary, and it's
Yes.
something that you can handle. And that's the important thing. I love your example. I love your example because we live in hyper emotion most of the time.
Mm,
We have so much information coming at us, whether it's social media, whether it's the news, whether it's just email. The average person that is in business person is receiving 200 to 300 emails a day. So let's understand the consumption of information that we get on a daily basis and how we only read about a third of the words on the page.
mm.
So when we're only reading a third of the words on the page, we end up in a lot of emotional hijack. And the reason for it is because we never read the whole page. And if we do, we have to remember there is no emotion in email. Yet we spend our whole time with, did you see how she wrote this?
Oh
How
my
dare she talk
goodness.
to me like that? She's not talking, she's typing. And there's
It's
no emotion in
so
email. But that's where we have to start understanding who we are, what triggers us, name that trigger, own that trigger. So when you see it coming, you're like, flick it off like a bug. No, I'm going to take the time to
yes.
understand this situation.
Oh my gosh, that's
And
brilliant.
that's why it's important to talk about this. And the Weeble is a weighted
Yes.
foundational toy.
Yes.
And we have a strong foundation. And you know, you never see any professional player not do his best when they're not grounded. All starting points of all sports is grounding. So we stand not flat footed, but at the ready, grounded, so that we can handle what's coming at us and understand that everything that happens to us is for a moment.
Mm,
The rest is continuous change because you got that information. As soon as you digested it, that information has changed. As soon as you took an action, that information has changed more. So you have the power to own how you're going to react to that change.
I I feel like this is this perfect moment where we're coming back full circle to some of the first things you said around getting the information. And beautiful example around emails. I do feel like so many people are in a reactive mode to stuff that's coming at them. And one of the things I'm just gonna say, I have like a new slogan, but like pick up the phone. It's making me so frustrated how many people get really dysregulated by some email or text. I would say text is even worse than
Mm,
email because it's fast and it's quick. And some people literally are just, that's it. They're doing it intentionally to be fast and quick,
right.
not to upset the other person. It's like and so what's happening is we're all taking, like you said, our triggers and we're bringing them to to a new kind of mechanism that does not really allow for that. And so you're right. I want to bring us back to, my example. We have multiple examples of like, okay, so when that happens, pick up the phone and say, hey, got that email, got that text. I just want to make sure I fully understand what you were trying to say with an open question, not with like a already defensive, I read it wrong, whatever. From curiosity, can you figure out what that person meant? And I bet we would all spend so much more time. And in that moment that you pick up that phone, you are actually driving connection. You are actually becoming closer to the person who probably had no intention. And then they say, oh, I'm sorry. I was like running out to get my kid and I knew I owed you an answer. So I just quickly gave it to you. I mean, this is what we do. We create all these, narratives around what the other person's thinking and how could they do it that way, this way. And it is a real, true waste of energy. And that's for me right now, as I'm feeling it and feeling my energy back and feeling grounded again in my feet. I just think, okay, wasted energy, all that energy for something that really didn't matter, that I made matter more. It mattered only for me to learn that I can reflect, figure out what my trigger is around that and not use that energy in that way, but use that energy in finding the joy in things and getting myself sort of set in my footing. So it really does, bring us right back to what you said, which is if we can come from curiosity, clarification, questions, and pause, that piece allows us to come back to our real footing, back to our foundation, and come from a place like the way in which I want to show up, right, with good energy and from a place of learning, growth, all the things that we talk about. So this has been a like live right in front of you. Beth has experienced a trigger, come back around, and feels like there's a lot of beautiful joy in learning what that was about for me. So really special one for me today. Wow.
Absolutely. And I think a special one for all our listeners because we all are just getting so much information thrown at us and so much potential bad news or enlightenment, whatever we want to call it, but definitely constant change. And with
Mhm.
um, I think of the song, I'm sorry, the song of today's episode for me is The Master, the Man, Elton John, I'm Still Standing. That's right.
Love it.
And
Love it.
it's perfect because at all things are possible. Reality, there's nothing we can't handle. And at the end of the day, you're grounded, you're fine, you're still standing. Let's see what we have with our gratitude rock.
Oh, I love that choice. Beautiful. Okay. Let's see. It's a very cool color. You can see it's kind of got
Ooh,
this like
matches my clothes.
sheen. Yeah, it does.
Nice.
And the word is inspire. So, inspire, you know, I'm I guess I have two things that come up right away, which is I'm inspired by this, by our group, by our listeners, by you, that we get to do this, that we get to just be so vulnerable in front of people, experience ourselves truly. And it's inspiring that I know I can do that in this space that like really inspires me. And my hope is that we provide inspiration outwards when people get to see we're all just messy. We're all just showing up and doing the best we can. But there is so much possibility in understanding that and learning from it and then coming back to that like really grounded space so that when the constant of change comes, like we're ready in some way to know that we have that strength. And yeah, all of that feels like inspire, feels like a really beautiful way to tie this episode up because I'm feeling it for sure.
Absolutely. I hope we helped inspire you all to take that pause, to be curious, and to understand that you got it. You have it always. You always can handle things. And it's always filled with joy and gratitude. We hope to see you soon again.